For your iOS apps, you might want to work with PDF files. This could include either loading it from file, creating it, or also displaying it in a PDF viewer. This is the third part of a series where I built a web reading app. And so far, I added the ability to add here new entries for this reading items with the URL. Then in the navigation split view, I can select one of these, go to the detail, and it loads this website. Now I am using here WebKit with WebView. And in this tutorial, in this part, I want to add the ability to create PDFs from these web pages, which is actually quite straightforward when you work with WebKit. And we're going to save these PDFs so that on your device, for example, I can here export as PDF. I show here this little success indicator. We are saving it so that the user can see it actually in the Files app. If you open here on my iPhone, you see I have one folder for my application with my app icon where I created these PDFs. So this is the first part. First, we're going to create these PDFs and write them to the file system, configure our app a little bit, because I need to change the way I store these files, because we need to set it up so that we can store to the Files app, where the user can actually see this. This is again a little bit about app sandboxing. Then, as an additional feature for this app, I might want to also add here a section where I can actually see all the PDFs that we generated. So in this case, I am looking into the directory that you just saw that is also shown in Files app. We are getting all the PDF files, we are checking the names of these and showing them here. And once we have these PDFs, I can add here these navigation to a detail view, and this is actually a PDF viewer. We can show all of these PDFs. As a little bonus, you can also add the ability to delete one of these files. So in this case, I actually have to go to this directories file and delete these files. So now it's gone. And I can also add here a share button. This is then a share sheet. For example, on the simulator, you don't see this. This is then, for example, for AirDrop, so I can send it to another device. It's a little bit of file handling there. This is the third part of a series, and I'm first showing you what I built so far. You can also find links to the other tutorials in the description box, and also a link to the project files so you can pick up where I left off last time. The main view for this application is content view. We have this navigation split view. In the first view that you see here, I can add new items like the Apple. Sometimes the keyboard doesn't really work with these previews. Apple, and then a website URL apple.com, and then save. This adds this item, and you can then tap here and go to this where this URL is loading. This view is the reading detail view. Now for this one, I want to add the ability to actually save this web views as a PDF, so I'm going to this view. I added some sample data in the preview, so we see here the Apple website. Okay, the main content here is this web view, which is a UIViewRepresentable around WebKit, so I added here a VK web view. And for the content of this view, I want to create a PDF. In this UIViewRepresentable, I have a state that in the make UI view, I pass reference to this UI view to this state. So I have access to the web view from my SwiftUI view here, where I actually want to add another toolbar button. This is action and label, save as PDF. Now this is not shown in this preview because I need to actually here, this view is not in a navigation stack or split view, so I need to wrap this in a navigation stack, for example, just to see it in the preview. So now we have this button for save as PDF. And as you see, this is not looking very nice. So you can create a menu, title, system icon. So this is more. And I'm using here this ellipsis circle. And the content is actually these two buttons now. So that here I see this save as PDF button. Now the question is, how do I actually do this? And we need to work with this VK web view. I have a reference in this one view model. So I jump to definition. Here I pass this as a VK web view, as a vvar. So down here, I can create a create PDF function to do this. Now, first I need to actually check if I have something, because this is an optional guard. Let web view else return. Web view has a function where you can generate a PDF. There's two different versions here. One is an async function and the other one is with a completion handler. I'm just going to use the completion handler, where you get a result. Now this result has two cases, the success and the failure, and we're using a switch case. So in case of success, I get the data, this binary data, which I can use to store to disk. So let's create another function to save PDF to disk for this data that I'm passing here. So in the success case, I am calling this function. I use multiple functions just to make it more organized, so I know what I'm actually doing. Dot. And in case of failure, I'm going to, for now, just print the failure here. Error creating PDF, and then I print this. You might also want to handle this error a little bit better and actually show it to the user. So this is a to-do. Show error feedback to user. Okay, but let's just go through the main steps and actually save this to disk. Now, where do I want to store this so that it comes up in the Finder app? And the URL that I want to use is the documents URL, which you can get from the URL.documents directory. Now my app is Sandbox, and per default this is going to go into the container in the sandbox of my app in the documents directory. If I want to now move this documents directory so it's shown in the files app, I need to change my project settings here under target info, and here I have to add one more key. So pressing on this plus, and I have to use the one support documents browser, saying yes. This is then moving everything that I store in this documents directory so that it's shown in the files app. Then I want to have a title for this document, and I use the title that I had here. This is this current title from the URL. And you could also use the web view and ask this directly. This is how I generate this. We could also ask the user to give it a name. But it's probably quite convenient to use the web page's title. Okay, now I have something to construct the final URL. So this is the URL. I use the documents directory and append this title with the extension of PDF, because it's a PDF file. Okay, now we have the data, we have the URL, and I can actually start writing to disk by using the data write to file URL. This is a throwing function. So I use a do catch block to handle this nicely. Try, and we can catch the error if something happens. Print error saving PDF, and I print here this. Again, you might want to actually store this error and show it somehow to the user. For now, I just want to show the success to the user that we actually generated something. So every time I do this, I need to have another state property here that I then can use in my views. So I add this after here. This is a var success URL, success generated URL, PDF URL, of type URL, so optional, because in the beginning I didn't generate anything. Then when I'm here finished, I now know that I successfully here wrote this to file, and we can set this URL here. For now, I'm just going to, for the first test, let's print this. Success, file URL, absolute string, so we see something. Okay. I can generate a PDF from data, and I can save it to disk. And we can use this function in our views in this button. So in the view that I had, this was in the reading detail view, in the toolbar for the save function, I have access to this view model, which is the web view state, to create a new PDF. Okay, now let's build and run to see if my setup is working. I choose one of these. We're loading this. Now I use my More button and use Save as PDF. Get this print statement with the name of this file as a PDF here. Then I close the app and go to the Files app. In the Browse tab, I go to On my iPhone, and now I have here one more folder for my application. This is the same name as my app, Web Reading List app. It's generated by default, I cannot change this. I go in here and I have actually two files. One is the PDF that I just generated. For tab, it's per default open in Safari to view this. If I go back, I now have this other file, which is a JSON file. This is the file that I used to store the information in my application. Here I track what web pages I want to track. So here, this is, for example, one of the names of these files. Has finished reading, false, here's the URLs. So this JSON has the information of what data I have in this list. In this case, it's 5 items. I need to track these because I need to store this information somewhere, but I don't really want to have this now in the same exposed to the user, because this looks a little bit weird. They're like, what's this JSON file, what is this doing? So I definitely don't want to have this file in here. Let's just have a close look at where I stored this. So my content view, here in the sidebar, I show this reading list. So this items is done with this other view model, the reading view model. This has functions to store these data, and here at the end of this navigation split view, I have an on change of the scene phase where I say, when the application launches, then I'm loading this from this JSON, and when I go inactive, then I'm saving this. So let's just have a look at this view model. This is the data that I stored as a JSON. I have here a function where I generate this file URL, and you see this is in also the documents directory. Because I changed now my info plist, my settings, everything that I put in this documents directory is now exposed to the Files app. It's not really what I want. I need to change this, and we have 4 locations for the storing. And there's 2 temporary ones that are deleted occasionally. I cannot put them in the temporary caches. I need to permanently store them. And instead of the documents directory, which is now shown in files, I need to use the other one that is permanently, which is the support directory. In contrast to the documents directory, the application support directory is not generated by default, and this might give you an error. So we need to create this directory if it doesn't already exist. So I'm adding here another function for support directory, which gives me this URL. Now in this case, I have to use the file manager because I need to generate this URL if necessary. This is the URL for in creating. So this is the application support directory in user domain mask, appropriate nil. And here this last argument is the one that I wanted to use to say, yeah, create if it doesn't already exist. Now this can fail, this can throw. So we're going to use a good old do catch block to check if something goes wrong. Error creating support directory. And I print here this error. Okay, I have an URL that I return. And if I didn't generate anything, I return here nil in the error case. So, okay, when I construct my path, I ask for the support directory. If this isn't giving me nil, then I'm using the url.documents directory, just to be sure that I save something somewhere. And change something now, so it's not going to give me the same data again. So let's just delete the whole app again. Remove app. Just starting fresh. If you change something with your data model where it's stored, it's best to start fresh. And just delete the whole app. That means also these files are deleted. Okay, now we are back to business. I am now using here the support directory. And we are storing this JSON file in there. So for example, I can toggle here, this is finished. I leave. This is then saving this properly. Then I go to one of these and I call here save as PDF. This is now saving this file to PDF. And if I go now to the Files app and I open this reading my apps folder, this is now newly generated because I deleted everything. I really only have this one PDF in here because this is the documents directory. This is not the application support directory folder now. So we have now separated this out into files that I use internally in my application. For example, this JSON user data and the files that I want to show to the user, which is in this Files app, the PDFs. The next thing I might want to do is when I save this here, I want to actually show feedback to the user because now you just press here this button and nothing is shown. I don't know as the user, did you do something? It's kind of annoying for them to go to the Files app and actually check. So I definitely want to use now the success case. So this is in this reading detail view. And I want to have this little overlay. Maybe we do this in a separate file just to keep things a little bit clean. This is the success saved file view. In this case, because I have this generated URL for my view model, I know where this PDF is. I can pass this here to this view and we can show the title of this PDF. So here I can show label a saved file 2 and we are printing here the URL's last path component. So this is just a file name. I don't want to show the whole URL. As an example, you can copy one of these to get a string from URL. It's probably a little bit too much. That's just a title. And this is URL from string is an optional. So I'm force unwrapping this here. I only do this in the preview. If the preview crashes, I feel it, not the user. And then for the system icon, I can show a checkmark dot circle. So just need to zoom in. We have now this title. So saved PDF 2. Okay, as a little bit of styling, I can add a padding, a green background, some corner radius, a shadow, change the foreground style to white. I can add a frame around it so it's shown on the bottom. Add a padding around it so it doesn't touch the edges too much. So I want to show this also on top of the Z-stack. So here I add my success file for URL, which I am getting if let URL is the web view states success URL. This is the file URL. Then I show this. Once this happens, the thing is, it's going to show forever, which I definitely don't want. So I just want to show it for like 5 seconds and then make it disappear. So I add here an onAppear to say that dispatch queue.main.async after, this is now plus, let's say 3 seconds. I can execute the block here. And in this case, I want to make this view disappear. How do I make this view disappear? I need to toggle this state. I need to change the state that makes this view visible, which is this success state. So I'm just going to set this to nil again. So I should be able to see it and then it disappears. In order to add an animation when this happens, I add a with animation block. You can also change the way this is animated. For example, a bouncy with a duration of 2 seconds. So it's slowly moving out. Okay, maybe I just run this one time to see the whole thing happening. So I go to one of these pages. Then I press here save as PDF. This was successful. I saved it, just not updating. Let me check if I did something right. So this is the URL I'm using for my UI, so that when I create this PDF, I actually need to properly set this here, not the current one, but the success case. So this is the successfully generate PDF. I have so many URLs now. Need to be quite careful about the state handling. So I go in here. I save to PDF and you see this little sheet coming up. And after 5 minutes, it's leaving. If you want to also show how this is animating here, then you need to, so the incoming is, you need to add another animation block this view doesn't know about this with animation because I only have here foundation, so I'm changing to import also SwiftUI. And then the way this is animating is just fading in and out. So if you go to the success view here, you can change the transition to say move and then which edges, and I'm using the bottom. So it moves in from the bottom and then it moves out from the bottom. I need to work with transitions because this is about how views appear and disappear. Okay, I now go for save as PDF. This comes up. It's bouncy, so it does it, and then it goes down. You can play with the settings for this time periods to show this longer or shorter, or make this more bouncy or less bouncy. But for now, this is pretty good. I have now the ability to save this to the files, to my Documents Files app. And the last thing that I want to actually do, or the main thing, was to, now that I have these PDFs, I actually want to show them. And the thing is, since I saved this to this, I want to now retrieve them from this directory. So we need to check this directory, get all the URLs in this directory, and then show them in the UI. Similar to the other view models where I have here these classes to handle these files and folders and anything, I'm creating another one of them for these PDFs. So this is a new file for PDF view model. So I'm importing here foundation. This is a class PDF view model. Now for the data flow, similar to the other view models and the other models, I am using the observation, which means that this now has to be an observable marked. Okay. Now the question is, what's this view model supposed to do, and what data do we need to get from here? So what I actually wanted to do is I just want to have the file URLs for the PDFs that I generated in my documents directory. So this is a var PDF files, and this is an array of URLs. So this is just what do we have. In the beginning, this is empty, and then I need to have a function to load these PDFs. And the other one that I wanted to also generate it was I wanted to at some point delete these files, where I give the file URL. Okay, this is now again some file handling. So how do we load something? First of all, we need to access again the directory that I wanted to do this with. So this is the directory. This is URL.documents directory, similar where I saved this to. Here, this is the same directory. So this was in the web view state where I created these PDFs. Here, this is the same URL. Now, how do I know what files are in this directory? And for this, I'm going to use the file manager. This is a higher level framework that you can use for creating files, deleting directories, creating directories, files, and also for checking what files are in a directory. So I can ask the default for the content of a directory. So this is for this directory. I'm getting an error because it can throw, maybe it just can't handle the file URL or whatever here. So I'm adding a do catch block around this, so we see if something goes wrong. And I'm printing in the error getting PDF file URLs. And I'm printing the error. Okay, now these are the file URLs of type array URL. But just as a safety check, I want to actually check if these really are PDFs. Each of these file URLs has a property, these URLs, which is the path extension. And this is the PDF or TXT or PNG extension, so that we can just filter these URLs. So I can use the file URLs and filter them to check if these URLs path extension is equal to PDF. So now I know I'm only having PDF files that I then can set here to this property. So this is then giving me these URLs. And then next I wanted to just show you, because we're already talking about directories and files, how to delete this. And again, I'm using File Manager for this. File Manager default to remove an item at a URL. This is the URL, or if you have it as a string, you can use the path. You can just have a look at here, for example, what else you can do with File Manager. For example, does this file exist? Creating a directory, copying items from one location to the other. But in this case, we just want to do the deleting. This is another function that can throw. So again, we do catch print for testing for development purposes. I'm just going to use here print statements, so at least I see when something goes wrong, not just ignore all my errors. So this is error deleting PDF, and I mark this with a try. Now in this view model, I never actually called this load function, so for the simplicity I am creating a default initializer where I am calling this load PDF function. Okay, let's go to the content view to think about where to add these views. In my sidebar, I have this reading list view where I show these reading items. So this is then going for all of these items. In this case, I have to work with the list selection for the navigation stack. So I would need to change this list a little bit with the selection. Let's just, for now, create a separate view for the section that I show for the PDFs. This is PDF section view, and then in a minute I work with the other one. So as an example, I would want to have here my view model. This is at state private var PDF view model, and I'm creating this here. When I initialize this, I load my data. And then I create a section with title, saved PDFs, where I show for each with the PDF view models PDF files. So I get here the file URLs. So I can show here the file last path component. Now this initializer for each requires that we have to have identifiable data. URLs are not identifiable. So I'm adding here an ID with self. Use these URLs as an identifier. In this case, I know they are unique because I should not have the same URLs that would. Okay, now you see the two files that we actually generated. It uses the same, the preview uses the same app build and the same files. So we see there is files directly here. In some cases, this might be really long, so I'm changing the line limit to 1. And actually, I want to have this section closed initially, so we can use the expanded property. And this needs to have a binding at state private var is expanded bool false. And I can use this here, which you don't see. So we need to add here a list in this preview. So you can see this is true or false. So I want to have this collapsed. Okay, we have this data. Let's now try to merge it with the rest of the app. So I have to again refactor my application with the data flow. So for this navigation split view, which I'm using so I can use it on the iPad, I need to have this binding to this list selection. And in this case, we need to work with two different types. One time I might have this reading item selected, and the other time I might have this PDF file selected. So the binding to the selection need to be changing, and let's just rename these files. So it's going to go one level higher, and I am using here a for each instead, and around it a section with title reading list. And this does not have here this selection anymore, because it's just a for each. Again, in this preview, I need to add a list. Sometimes it's a bit tricky. Okay, this is the note, this one section. Before I go, I'm just going to rename this to remind myself that it's not actually a list, it's just a section. So then in content view, here I have this list with the selection. And then there's two sections, the PDF section and the reading section. So now we have these two sections, also with the first one being collapsed. The next thing is, currently I can only select here types of reading items, so won't be actually able to navigate to the PDF, which means that we need to change this type here to something that also encapsulates the PDF. So we have two cases, either I have something from the first section or something from the second. So I'm creating here an enum, navigation, selection. This is identifiable. It's going to be a bit more complicated because I have these two cases of PDF and the reading item. And in both cases, I need to pass something for these cases. So first I have either a URL for the PDF case, or I have a item, which is my reading item, which has the web URL. Now, because this needs to be identifiable, I need to add an ID. In this case, I'm using a string, because then I can use the URL string value and the reading items URL string value to compare them. They should be unique enough. So I use a switch self. In case of I have a PDF, I return the URL, the file URL's absolute string. In case I have a web URL, I have the item which has the URL absolute string. I could also use here the identifiers, because this one is actually properly identified. So this one has an UUID, and I can use the UUID string. This is a bit more safe. Okay, now I have a state property that I can use for the selection. So this is now the type of the selection, which I'm using with this list. And again, I need to work here with hashable, so I am adding hashable to this enum. Okay, now we have some type issues because I changed quite a lot. So let's start with the detail view here. In this case, the selection now has two cases. And in these cases, I have the information. So I use again here switch selection. Now you see I have this information to pass and show the right detail views. So in case of the reading item, I pass this item. And in case of a PDF, I have now URL for my PDF view, which I didn't generate yet. And I probably should actually organize this a little bit better. So my views is a new group for PDFs. So in here, I create a SwiftUI view, which is a PDF reader viewer. I want to pass the URL for this file. Maybe I'm renaming this to file URL because now I work with web URLs and file URLs. So just a little reminder what I do here. Then I add this argument with an example from string. This is a view we have to work on, but I need to connect my things now. So now that I have a view for this PDF to show, I can pass this URL. Okay, we fixed now the detail view, and I can work on this main views. So first, I actually don't need to pass the selection, I think, to my reading list section. Let's just check. So I remove the selection, also from the preview. Okay, this file seems to be okay. I didn't use it anywhere else, just for the list selection. But what I have to do is here change the tag. So the selection for the list gets its information from this tag for this row. So in this case, I need to use the type that it generated, the selection for reading item, and I'm passing here this item. So now I have the correct type with the correct associated value for this item. And I need to do the same for this PDF section. So here, when the user tabs, I also need to change the tag to content views, navigation for PDF for this file. Okay, let's build and run and hope that I didn't forget something. And I have here too many plus and edit buttons. So where did I do this? In the PDF section view. So I added this toolbar to the section, which means it actually passes it and adds it for each of these items because of for each. So I'm cutting this out here and going to the content view so I can add it to the list. And it needs to have the state property that I cleared in the other view. So I'm not using it here in the reading section view, but in the content view. We could also extract this in another subview. Okay, now I have my 3 elements. And if I open this, you see these 2 actions, 2 PDFs. So I can still navigate to one of these websites. And we want to also show now these PDFs. Okay, looks like I managed my views and navigation, and we can work on this PDF viewer here. I need to have a PDFKit view. Just for my own organization, I'm renaming this to the detail one, so I know this is the one where I have a SwiftUI view. PDF detail view, and then I create another one where I actually create the UI view wrapper around this PDFKit view. This is SwiftUI view for the PDF viewer view wrapper. Okay, I'm not going to work here with a SwiftUI view. I work with UIViewRepresentable. I need to import PDFKit. For the UIViewRepresentable, we have to implement 2 functions, the makeUIView, where I need to return a UIView type. And in this case, I create a PDF view. So this is the type I'm here working with. And then the second function is the update function, where I get the existing PDF view and I can change it. Now what do I actually need to do? The main thing is to load here a URL. So I create a property for this struct, so we have access to the URL, the file URL. And then the update function I can call document and set a new PDF document from a file URL. This is the one that I have here. Now you can further customize the views. This is the minimum for this view, and we can just test this and add this to our detail view. So here I use my PDF view wrapper for the file URL we're having. The reason why I wanted to have this is so that I can, for example, add here a toolbar with a delete button. So this is a button, action and label. So this is, for example, delete, and then the icon is the trash. Again, I won't see anything in the preview because this view is not in navigation stack, so we're adding one just for the preview. Navigation. What is the function that I want to here call to delete this? And in this case, so we're going to work on this delete function in a minute, and I just want to at least one time try this. So I have a look at the saved URLs, PDFs. I open this and you see this PDF coming up in the scroll view. It's automatically in the scroll view. I have here this delete button. Now, how do I actually delete this? Where should I delete this? And when we look back at the view that had this information, which was this PDF section, here this view model has all the PDF files, and we already added a function to delete these files. So from my detail view, I need to have access to this class. Right now, I declared this in one of my subsections, but I need to move it one level higher so I can propagate it to all of the smaller views. So I copy this, go to the content view. So here, I already have one of my view model with this data, so I add this one here. And because I declared it up here, I need to pass it down to the subview where I had it previously in this subsection. In order to pass this back and forth, this needs to now change to a bindable. Where I pass this, I did not declare it, initialize it here. Then I need to add here a new reference. I go back in my content view, and now I pass this PDF view model. Okay, so this view model instance now lives on the topmost level in my views in the content view, so I can pass it to the different subviews. The first one was this list selection, and the second one is here when I'm in the detail view. This one also needs it, so it can modify this URL, actually delete this file. So similar to the other one in this detail view, here now I should have access to this binding var PDF view model of type PDF view model. I'm changing this also in the preview. This has to be a bindable for this view model. And then go back to the content view. here. Now I can pass this. So I declare this in the content view. I pass it one time to the section and then one time to the detail view, so that in the detail view, for this delete button, I can call now PDF view model, delete this file URL. This deletes it on disk, and we actually should also remove it from this array. So here, when I'm successful, I either could update this PDF files array directly, or we can just call the load PDF files, just to be sure I did this correctly. Then, so okay, now when I press this delete button, the file is deleted, it's deleted from the array, and I actually want to close this detail view. So for this, I use the environment property for dismiss to dismiss this. Okay, we're loading. I can see this now. I go to one of these files and I delete. This is deleting. I see here, okay, I'm updating this section. Then I go to my files app, to this folder, and you see there's really just one file now. So I can now create and delete these files properly. One thing that is not really good right now is the way I'm here loading this section. For example, if I add now this one and save as PDF, and I go back, you see it doesn't show in my section. That is because I only loaded it once when I created this file or when I deleted this now. So for example, when I press save as PDF, I might also want to call the other view model to say, oh yeah, please reload this PDF, update this. You can also do something smaller in this case, which is, for example, here on this sections on appear. This is also when I go back in the navigation stack. PDF view model dot load PDF files. As you see, I might need to connect what happens between these view models. In this case, I can also use notification center to say, oh yeah, please reload this, so I don't need to pass in here too much. So I open the section and I go to one of these pages. I save as PDF. I go back, and it actually here saved it also, and we see this now in the section. I can also double check this in the files app, and I have these 3 files now. The last thing for these PDFs that I might want to do is add here a share link, so that we can share these PDFs with other devices or AirDrop, for example. So my PDF detail view, I can add here a share link with item, and you see this has initializer where we can pass in a URL. This could be a file URL, which I already have. This is it. I can now build and run again. I go to one of my PDFs. I press here this share link. This brings up this share sheet. For example, I can do a markup. So I note something here and then done. Save file to done. So now I'm overwriting this. I can also say save to file and then here save it to a different location. Adding this share link is quite simple now because we have the file URL. To wrap up, I'm just going to open this also on an iPad. In this tutorial, you learned how to create a PDF when you have a web view here. So we can save these URL and show here nicely the success animations. This is good for the users so they know I actually did something. Then I added a section where we can see all of the PDFs that we generated. When I select these here, I show a different detail view with a PDF viewer. And in this case, I created a UIViewRepresentable. This is rather simple. I'm just showing here this one PDF file. In order to do this, we had to work with the directory system. We had to load these URLs, check what is in the directory. And you can also do stuff like deleting one of these PDFs here or adding share links. A lot of the things that I had to do in this tutorial was more related to data flow of, oh yeah, when I press here, this view goes here, and then I need to load this information. This app is a really good playground to learn about saving files to disk. This might be user-generated data that I had here in this reading information as a JSON file. In contrast to, for example, if you have PDF files that you want to see in the Finder app, the files I'm working here are documents, PDF documents, or some rather simple user-generated data for this reading list. These are really not large files, it's just a JSON file. There's other use cases. You might have different situation where you, for example, want to store a simple value for your whole application in user defaults. You want to have some secure storage of some keys, secure storing, or you have some more complex data with relationships and a lot of filtering and fetching, then core data is more interesting. I'm going to leave 2 different videos, one where I talk more general about these different options, and one where I talk about core data. So you see how this one works in contrast to this more simple approach of file storage. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of this content. Until next time, happy coding!